Hi, and welcome to the Connection Cafe. Today, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the grief that I've been through and why do what I do, because I do it because of what I have been through. I wanted to talk about one particular thing. It was almost 34 years ago when I had twins at 24 weeks gestation, and they were £1.8 and £1.15. And they were really, really sick when they were born. We were told that they possibly would not survive, or probably would not survive at all. So, that was devastating to hear. But, I'd been in hospital for about 9 or 10 weeks before that because of different things. And then all of a sudden on Australia Day, I went into labour. My placenta abrupted. So it was pretty horrible. And that hospital that I was actually in didn't do emergency Caesars. So they had to search for a hospital that would do a Caesar and would keep the babies alive, which was devastating for us, that we would think that people would not keep babies alive. As difficult as that was, I sort of didn't expect that of the medical society, whatever you'd like to call them. Back then, I just expect people, they do no harm, and doing no harm for me then was keeping them alive no matter what. So the hospital finally found somewhere that both babies could be, because they needed neonatal intensive care as well. And I got my midwife, and she was beautiful. She was absolutely gorgeous. And I totally believe, is the reason why they were born alive. Because she rang my doctor, who was playing tennis at the time, and didn't believe that I was in labour because I wasn't screaming, and I didn't have placental abruption because I wasn't screaming. And I've been brought up not to show pain. You just get through it. So internally, I was screaming. And this midwife, I could hear her out in the hallway yelling at this doctor, saying, "You have to come now. They're going to be born. You have to come now." So I got to the hospital at 12 o'clock. He saw me at 5. I can remember him feeling my stomach and saying, "It's like, she's not screaming. So, she's okay." Then all of a sudden, they went out into the hallway, and then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. So I was having ultrasounds and, blood taken and all sorts of things, and signing of stuff, and it became this horrendous hurry up thing that I wasn't being told what was going on. So, and then my husband was there as well, and he had no idea of what was going on either. So they just said, "You're going to have a cesarean, we're going to take you now," and that was it. So they took me off to theatre, they put me to sleep. My husband just disappeared. I don't know where he disappeared to, but then I remember waking up, and this beautiful nurse was there, and he said, "Look at your hand." And I looked at my hand. It was so surreal. And he wrote "girls" on there. And it was like, I was elated that they were born. But then I went to see them the next day. I think they wouldn't let me see them that night, but they took me the next morning, and they were tiny. They were like tiny. Not as big as Barbie dolls. And, oh, hi, Tamara. Not as big as Barbie dolls at all. So they're only about 12 inches long. And the girls weren't that big. And their skin was very see-through. It just was not what I was expecting. So anyway, they were really ill, and we had all the tests done, and I had a beautiful doctor who, looked after us so well, looked after the girls really, really well. They were separated back then, nearly 34 years ago. They were put up one down one end in a humidity crib and the other down the other end because they were identical. So, and I can remember they had black markers on their back, 1 and 2, and on their feet, 1 and 2, so they could tell the difference between them. And finally, they were both really, really ill, very, very ill. And the doctor, he was so young. He was really, really young, but he was really good and really kind. He was talking to us and said, your youngest daughter, her name's Jessica, she is not going to make it. And I remember having that conversation with him. And my husband and I were there, and it was like we were both strong. We didn't cry, nothing, So, and he said, you could hold her, and we held her until her last breath. So this doctor, I'm trying to think of his name. He was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful young doctor. He was there with us, and he supported us all the way through. Anyway, fast forward 6 weeks, and I'd been in hospital because I was really ill. Cassandra is our eldest twin, who is still alive. And she was ill, and then she was better, and then ill and better. And she was in the humidity crib still. And the registered nurse there said to me, "Are you over the other one's death yet?" And I went, "What?" In my head, I thought, "Oh, okay, so I'm supposed to be over her death." And I actually answered yes. But I was so confused that this medical person was telling me that I should be over her. And I just wasn't. So I really shut down. I didn't talk to anybody about it then. I didn't even tell my husband at the time that this nurse had said it. But I was destroyed, totally, totally destroyed inside, that I should be over my other baby. And then the horrificness of that, all I can think of is trauma, horrified at this nurse saying to me, "Are you over her?" So that told me straight away, shut up, do not talk about your grief. So I didn't, and I shoved it down inside because I was fighting for our other daughter as well, and so was my husband. So, fast forward, I guess, 14 years later, my beautiful cousin was going to a fantastic therapist, and she recommended that I see her too. I did, found out that I had postnatal depression and was depressed all those years. I was just surviving the whole time. And the amount of things that people have said to me and the amount of things that I hear in my office, things haven't changed. I hear women saying all the time, I was actually put, after I delivered a stillborn baby, this is, women in my office saying to me, after I delivered my stillborn baby, I was put in with people who had their babies next to them, who had their babies on the ward and crying, and all I could hear were babies crying. So I want to help people cope with that, deal with that, deal with the thing that is terrible. And Tamara, because when it's your normal, you don't know, that it's not okay. That's right. That's exactly right, Tamara, because, you just, and it is heartbreaking. It really is. And I don't want anyone else to feel that way. I want people to feel empowered, to be able to talk about their grief. And, I hear people say all the time, "I'm not coping." What is not coping? What does that even mean? your baby's died. Your mum or dad has died, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, whatever, whoever has died. What is coping? You need to show your grief. You really need to show your grief. You need to be able to talk about it. You need to be able to say the word death, dead, dying. You need to talk about it in real way. And I'm so passionate about this that I want grief to be normal. I really think we've forgotten how to grieve. If we've ever known how to grieve, and people don't know what to say to each other either, because I really hate hearing I'm sorry. You say, oh, my mum died. Oh, I'm sorry. And I think, yeah, so am I. I'm really sorry. But that really doesn't help me. So I'd love people to know, how to be with other people. You don't have to cheer people up. You don't have to make them feel better. You can't. It's impossible. So I just thought I'd just give you that little story because, that is one of the most powerful grief stories that I have of my own that really, really impacts me every single day of my life. And, because I've lived so long, I've had so many other people die. Like, I've had pets die, I've had my grandparents die, my parents died, my sister died. And, I've had a lot of, oh, hi Thelma. I've had, my people in my aunts, uncles dying as well. So and everyone around me now has cancer as well, or there is suicide, a lot of suicide. So we really need to talk about grief. And I was talking to friends over the weekend, and one of them was saying, we're going to know people who have died by suicide like we know people who have died through cancer or who have cancer. So we need to talk about grief. Let's talk about it in a real way, in a loving way, in a caring way, in a being there for people way. So, I think that's... Oh, and I'm actually doing an online course. It's a secret Facebook course, and it's called Phoenix Rising. It's a 21-day course that we're going to do something different every day. We're going to walk through grief and find out what real grief is. You do grief the way you do grief, and that's okay. How to talk to people about grief, about the physiology of grief, how it impacts your mind, your spirit, your body. And it really does. And people do die of broken hearts. So... and what else is in there? Gathering your circle, your support circle, how to talk to them, how to have your story there. Oh, hi Jody. Thank you so much. And, it's like the changing face of grief, because my grief on the 26th of January is so totally different to what it is 33 and a half years later. And then, the compounding grief that you have, because you have friends die, you have pets die, you have, children, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters. So it's compounded as well. And grief is complex. I'd love you to learn about it. So I'm going to put a link in here where you can read about it. And there's a story about me sitting in my friend's lounge room that reminded me of my grandmother. I really love that. So I'll leave the link there. Hope you can have a look at it anyway, see, and hope it starts a conversation. That's what I want. I want people to talk about grief, but talk about their own grief. So thank you so much for being here, people. I really, really love this. I really love the support, and thank you for future people who are going to be watching. So thanks a lot, and I'll finish there. Okay, bye.